Disney has hired a new chief diversity officer. Now, some months ago, the predecessor to this position, Miss Latondra Newton, and typically when you're going to have, you look across these chief diversity positions across corporate America, they all generally have one thing in common. It is probably per capita the one corporate position that is absolutely unequivocally dominated by Black women, and Black women who usually fall under one of the LGBTQ things.
A redheaded Irish man need not apply.
Right. So, but there were some people saying months ago that, well, with Latondra Newton leaving, that Disney was turning a corner, or maybe was turning a corner, and that they were going to do away with that division altogether and moderate this. And then, of course, Bob Iger makes his comments a couple of weeks ago during a private investor conference about he wanted to quiet the noise and everything. A lot of noise that Disney itself had started, folks, of course. But then they hire a new chief diversity officer, and the department is right back to running again. Disney is not changing course. We've told people this. And when you know it, she was the former chief diversity officer for the Civil Rights Division of the U.S. Department of Commerce. Figure that one out. Why do you need CDOs, chief diversity officers, in government positions? But okay. So you can see where this is going. Disney has had this mantra of, it's not just about, hey, let's create new characters to suit, ethnic audiences of this, that, or the other thing. Disney has done that for, I don't know, the last 30 years. I mean, we had Princess Jasmine, who was Arabian. We've had Pocahontas, Native American. We've had Moana in the last 10 years, who was Hawaiian and Pacific Islander. We have had Princess Tiana, of course, from Princess and the Frog. So they've had plenty diverse major headline Disney princess characters. These folks come in, and Ron, I don't know if you've ever seen this or maybe remember some of this stuff, but of course, there was all kind of fun things that came about with Disney's Department of Diversity, or DEI, and their Reimagine Tomorrow program. Of course, we had some of these things here. These are actual things that were handed out to Disney employees, teaching them all about their white privilege. Of course, there was the checklist that was put out there. We reminded folks of this in a video. How white privileged are you? And the more, of course, things that you checked off on here, the worse of a person you are. I mean, this is what this department at Disney is designed to do, is to demoralize employees at Disney. And I know Pro has reported on a number of occasions that, that we've heard from folks elsewhere as well, that, the employee morale at Disney is not not the best anymore.
Let's not forget that according to high-level sources that both Valiant and I have talked to and verified their identity and know that they know what they're talking about, although we cannot verify this. We're independent of it. But, I don't know. Maybe we could. I remember there were documents attached to this. But anyway, we've seen that they had to keep a virtue log, right, a diary of their DEI virtues that they had obtained. We have seen and heard about Disney employees being called into HR meetings for having expressed views which were not of the left. And so Disney, I think, took this way farther than most corporations do. And that's all buried in this DEI program. It's all buried under the CDO position, and especially inside of Reimagine Tomorrow.
Yeah.
It is unimaginable. It is unimaginable that they would not have filled that position. And whatever changes they are going to make could only, in theory, be made under the cover of hiring somebody new, and then it would have to be somebody ineffectual. And clearly, they've hired someone who is actually quite used to having a lot of influence and a lot of power. And the problem is, I don't think you can pull out of something like this as easily as you get sucked into something like this.
Yep. Yeah, because of course, if you try to back out, I guess, Ron, let me ask you, put the lawyer hat on for a second. Disney has buried themselves in this now for years, right? They now have an HR infrastructure based around this, hiring practices based around this. It's even so deeply embedded into Disney that all of their television and film projects have some type of DEI board that they have to follow. That there has to be this, that, or the other thing. And again, it's not just enough to where, hey, let's go ahead and do right off the bat, let's do a live action remake of Princess and the Frog with a black princess from New Orleans. Again, as I said in my video, my favorite Disney princess because from New Orleans, Jaded. I love the music in the movie. It's a good movie. Make that. But what do? That's not good enough. We have to take the Ariels, the Little Mermaids, and the Snow Whites. You talked about Snow White earlier. We have to unwhite some of that, right? That's kind of the mantra of this. So if Disney all of a sudden backs off of this, how quickly do you think employees at Disney that were brought there under this specter are going to turn around and sue Disney for racism or turn it into a shakedown and Rainbow Coalition shows up at their door the next day and demands money? And how would that play out if Disney decided tomorrow, we're not doing this anymore?
There wouldn't be anything like an immediate legal claim, but what there would be is that as soon as some, pretext for a lawsuit comes along, or perhaps even a legitimate ground for a discrimination lawsuit, the fact that Disney did not replace the DEI, what is the
DEI? Yeah.
She's the chief diversity officerix.
Yeah.
It would be evidence that would tend in the direction of establishing a hostile work environment. And that, it's, like I said, much easier to climb up than to climb down from these kinds of things. And besides, is there a public company or a major law firm with over 100 lawyers or any other professional organization that does not have a chief diversity officer?
I don't know, but why do we need one at all?
Yeah, that's what I keep wondering.
And the thing is, I'm going to go overwrite you with something I'm going to bring up on screen here because
yeah, go ahead.
If that's give me a second here because from I'm just, you read kind of part of her bio, but the other part of her bio talks about, and this is on the Disney official website, where she's had a bunch of government jobs, nearly 30-year experience working in diversity, civil rights, equal employment opportunity, and human relations arenas as a civil servant, consultant, university instructor. She holds a master's degree in human relations from University of Oklahoma and a bachelor's degree in mass communications from California State East Bay. Now, I'm from the Bay Area in California, and that is a piss-ass, poor excuse of a state school that sucks. Everybody knows that it's ghetto. It's right near Oakland. And maybe I'm being a little bit of a princess because I graduated from Stanford. And let me tell you, who goes to Cal State's East Bay? Cal State East Bay people are people that are commuters and work from home. But what is Cal State East Bay? I don't know. Let's go to the website. Hashtag we are East Bay, Cal State East Bay. Oh, look, become part of the chat. Oh, Latinx and a Hispanic. Oh, we can learn about that. Oh,
Mike, now let's go to the Stanford website and let's see how different it is.
All right, stand by.
Let me give you a rundown real quick. How Mike's exactly right. She has a very sparse resume for the position she holds.
Talk about failing
that's exactly
up.
right.
Talk about a loser failing up and playing and race baiting and playing the race card. Everybody, this right here is the worst of America when some minority has crappy education, a bunch of crappy government jobs, and somehow finds a way to get catapulted to the most important media and entertainment company on planet Earth that historically was the most important company for entertainment of families.
Yeah. Well, that's just it, Mike. She worked her way up first through, of course, government employment because, if you can fog a mirror, you can get a job there. Then she wound up wiggling her way out from the Department of Commerce in the U.S. Small Business Administration, where she was a chief diversity officer, to what? The first ever chief diversity officer when Motorola opened their DEI department. So she went from a rank and file government employee, that basically probably served no purpose, like probably 70% of the government employees, to going over to Motorola and then spent a few years at Motorola. And then Disney scooped her up a year ago. And then 1 year later, when Latondra Newton left, she hadn't even been there, but maybe 8 months. Now she's head of this department. Now this department has been moved under with HR, with Sonia Coleman, which I think it was there before. I don't remember, but yeah, this is just, it's a constant refrain of failing up with no merit. It's like, what did you really achieve? And to what y'all were saying, and I totally agree, and this is what my point in the video was, I have yet to decipher what the purpose of these departments are, apart from costing companies like Disney billions of dollars over the course of time. And especially with Disney, because unlike Motorola, right? Motorola isn't an entertainment company, right? They make phones and provide phone service. Disney, when that stuff gets shoved into all their television shows and all of their children's content and programming, like Strange World and Lightyear, you see what happens to those movies when they injected all the LGBTQ politics stuff into that. And the same thing with the movies and everything else, with the race swaps and all this stuff. That's nonsense that makes audiences go, that doesn't look like Ariel. Wait, that doesn't look like Snow White. Where's the Seven Dwarfs? This is ridiculous. You're literally costing the company billions of dollars that otherwise would have been sales. That's the economic opportunity cost of having these kind of doofy departments and companies like Disney. They can feel good about themselves. Well, look how much representation we put up on the screen. Yeah, but your company's like in dire financial trouble and is, there's an activist investor trying to do a hostile takeover of your board right now because of this. It's like, it doesn't work. So I'm sorry, but go ahead, guys. Thoughts on that?
Well, I just want to say, give the info as to how she made this jump, right? This individual who went from relatively obscurity with a lackluster resume and gets positioned where she is now, where she is the head of one of the most culturally important corporations in America, and she's over the diversity for it. What happened was she was sitting there in, again, relative obscurity, and her program that she had created called First Generation Professionals, FGP, that out of the blue, via the EEOC, was added to an executive order from President Biden. Mm-hmm. That catapulted her into being known. That's the kind of thing that you stick on your resume then, and my guess is, so then she shoots into the C-suites. My guess is that she was identified by the political left as the type of person that they wanted to go and do these things. So her program was put into an executive order to give her the gravitas so that now she can serve. We already know that Disney is incredibly connected with one particular political viewpoint and not any others, and they continue to fill their ranks and roster with individuals who have particular connections to this current administration and no other.
Let me make a point, Pro, about that I think you'll really appreciate about this concept of first generation. What was the term? First generation success? Or first generation?
It is first generation professionals.
Professionals. When I was in college, I went to Princeton in the 80s, and I was an RA. And at Princeton, the RAs have a very hands-on job. They're not really monitors or policemen. They're advisors. So we had RA camp before the school year started, and this is when this stuff is starting to come on board. And there was a new dean, a new lady dean, who came out of Brown, and she wanted to give us. She wanted to do an exercise to help us understand what it means to be excluded, what it means to be an outsider, what it means to be the other. So we all went out to a big field. And she said, if both your parents are legacies, go stand over there. And if one parent of yours is a legacy, stand over there. And if one parent and if both your parents went to college, stand over here. And if only one of your parents went, and she went through all this, and she said, now I hope some of you understand what it feels like to be different, to be that first generation. And I said, excuse me, Dean, you didn't say if neither of your parents went to college, stand over. You excluded the group of people, neither of whose parents went to college, in this demonstration of exclusion. You said, oh gosh, you're right. Okay, if neither of your parents went to college, go stand over here. And two people went over, a black woman and Ron Coleman. To me, that lesson stuck with me forever. She was so tunnel vision from her own experience, because of course, if you're at Princeton in 1983 or 4, whatever it was, at least one of your parents went to college, right? No, actually, not necessarily at all. Maybe your father was an orphan. Maybe your mother was an immigrant. And even if your face is white, but we play these cards over and over and over again, regardless of how complex and subtle people's human experiences can actually be. And, Mike, as you know, you can ring that bell and you can not ring that bell. My wife and I both have one Latino parent. They're both Ashkenazi Jews, but one came from Argentina, Russia by way of Argentina, and my mother came from Poland by way of Cuba. Now, when I was applying to college and to law school, there was that box. Hispanic, I could have checked that box and automatically added X number hundreds of points to my SAT score. My LSAT
bonus
score.
round, bonus points.
I couldn't do it because I knew it wasn't a program meant for me. And even though neither of my parents went to college, and I, in fact, had one of my classmates was a woman named Michelle Obama. Her name wasn't Obama then. But when we were in school, she was already socially superior to me. And she was black. But there's no accounting for that, So 40 years later, I guess, right? It's now 40 years later. We're still playing the same games. But worse, because now we're playing them for keeps.
It's not lost on me that you went into college, into the Ivy Leagues, and the naivete there was such that 40 years removed from the Second World War, you as a young Jewish man were taught about exclusion by being excluded.
Well, not only
unintentionally.
At Princeton, Princeton was notorious for its anti-Semitism in the 50s. But whatever, live and learn. I had a great time there. I was very well educated because it was still the 80s.
I miss the 80s.
Tom, I didn't know Andrew Napolitano. I have never appeared before him when he was on the bench in New Jersey.
I have to say, though, with this announcement of this DEI hire director, my hope and prayers that Disney will write its own ship have gone down the toilet even further than they were already flushed. Yeah. Just the sheer decision making, the fact that a board of directors and the C-suite executive said, "Oh yeah, this is who we're going to be in charge of sorting all this stuff out," tells me that they don't take anything serious other than the DEI program. They're completely bought in because they've just doubled down on the loser that they put in this position. Well, and I don't have any fans. So anybody on any channel that wants to call me a black-pilled lack of hope, I don't see any reason why I should have any hope at all whatsoever. Now, shame on me for holding on to the stocks that I have, but I'm dollar costing my average all the way down into the gutter at this point.
Mike, they filled the CDO before they filled the CFO.
I mean, I had a big chunk of stock that mom gave me when she passed away. That was like, I don't know, back in the early 2000s. And my dumb ass decided to buy a bunch on 170, 180, Ron. on the way up back in the middle of COVID, because I thought we were going for that Netflix valuation, Ron. I thought 400 was coming.
It may be a while before we see that, but yeah, Pro brought up something I was saying last night. I said, one of my viewers had made that comment after I put the video out a couple days ago on Miss Agramonte here. And sure enough, it's like, yeah, you're right. Disney apparently decided it was more important to get that chief diversity officer seat filled and announced before finding a CFO. They still do not have a permanent chief financial officer.
Well, to be fair, one is a relatively easy position to fill,
right?
Skills-wise, and one would require, I think, true magical powers.
Yeah. No, but I mean, you would think they'd want to have something done by November 8th. I'm hoping they will, because I mean, they really need to, unless they're just going to name the guy that's doing the interim job right now to that position, which they may well. They seem to have trouble finding executives that want to stick around. Bob Iger gets himself signed back up for 2 more years. Well, let's be honest. He signed himself up for 2 more years because that board does whatever he tells them to. And then, of course, you had the CFO leave after that, or right around that same time. Then you had the chief diversity officer, Ton Newton, leave around that same time. To what Pro was saying, pull this up. This is the article that he was referring to from the Federal Employment Law Training Group. This is back from just about a year ago, November 8th, 2022, almost exactly a year ago. This is Miss Tinisha Agramonte talking about her first generation professionals program. Now, let's get down to the nitty gritty. The interviewer is asking, per the executive order, federal agencies are now looking closely, or at least they should be looking closely at their diversity, equity, and inclusion and accessibility practices, where they should start in terms of addressing equity and inclusion for first-generation professionals. So, again, to what Pro was saying, she created this program. It was instituted at the federal level in many departments as an executive order from the Biden administration. She's working at Disney, and she's probably going to do the same thing here. So, yes. Anyway,
let's just say not every initiative gets into an executive order.
Right.
The person who generates it has to be someone they want to use for more purposes.
And she has a master's degree in the subject of human relations.
Mm-hmm.
That's probably something most of us learn by having human relations.
Yeah. Make sure you're subscribed to Valiant Renegade and join us every Sunday at 6 p.m. Eastern for the live show.